Thank you so much for joining us for our Girl Geek X New Relic event. I'm glad that we have heard from people like Tracy and all the solutions consultants and technical account managers who are interested in sharing the projects they've been working on and their passion for technology.
So we actually evolved from just collecting metrics to quantifying metrics into meaningful business values.
These are just some of the reasons why we need observability today.
I help customers answer the what, how, and why of system performance.
So if you're like me, I find it really helpful to look at what others have already created before I try to write a piece of code.
Now, just because I'm coming from New Relic, I would like to show you how easy it is to implement custom events and attributes.
I want you guys to understand what REST APIs are, how they're used, what is GraphQL, and what are some interesting trends in APIs today.
I started Girl Geek Dinners in San Francisco when I started working in engineering, and I felt a bit lonely on the team as the only female engineer.
One of the big things that's really important is having communities of people that you can bond with that are recognizable to you and sort of have the same interests and backgrounds that you have.
I want to encourage us to connect.
How do we as a company continue to push for more equitable access to technology?
Today we have over 200, I think we're at 300 Girl Geek events.
Technology skills are so incredible, and there's a myriad of ways you could apply those to social good.
Really know what the company does. Like, do some research, do your homework. There's a wealth of information about companies on the internet. It's like incredible.
Be proactive about it, ask questions, share what do you want.
Within, I just said, I'm interested in this thing, and I'm not really sure where to go from here.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to give people a chance to join us, but in the meantime, I guess I'll start with some introductions. Hi, so my name is Angie Chang, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us for our Girl Geek X New Relic event. I want to encourage us to connect with each other. So if you can, I would invite you to put in the chat your name, your location, your job title, company, and your LinkedIn URL so we can all get connected and feel free to connect with me. I wanted to introduce myself and kind of give you some background as to what Girl Geek Dinners is about. So I started Girl Geek Dinners in San Francisco when I started working in engineering, and I felt a bit lonely on the team as the only female engineer. And I go to all these tech events, but I wanted to go to tech events where the gender ratio was flipped. And these didn't exist in 2008. And I decided to start my own series of Girl Geek Dinners. And it turns out after 5 days of posting about it online, we had over 400 Girl Geeks that were interested in joining us for our first Girl Geek Dinner. And then the next one was sponsored by Facebook. And then we kind of just snowballed from there. And now today we have over 200, I think we're at 300 Girl Geek events. We've also started things like our virtual conference every year celebrating International Women's Day. So we really have also filled out our product portfolio of those podcasts. You can go on YouTube. So all the talks that you'll hear today will also be on our YouTube channel. And I invite you to subscribe to that. It's at youtube.com/girlgeekx. And you can find all the videos from our previous events and today's event on there as well. So everyone chatting. I just wanted to share how much I love learning from going to all these events over the years, because from listening to the women working in diverse corners of male-dominated industries, from engineering to sales, we have heard from people share their expertise, and we've also learned things like that job titles are constantly evolving. I remember when I used to work at HackRight Academy, a coding bootcamp for women, there was some women that I met at New Relic who were sales engineering leaders. And I thought they were so cool because they not only knew engineering, but they were also very savvy on the business side. And that it's because of the sales stuff. And I remember thinking that this was a really interesting part of engineering and tech that we often don't think about at the first thought of big tech or tech companies. The sales engineering side is overlooked. And I really, really wanted to I'm glad that we have heard from people like Tracy and all the solutions consultants and technical account managers who are interested in sharing the projects they've been working on and their passion for technology today with us. So we are excited to partner with New Relic, a company leading in full stack observability. We'll hear from the solutions consultants, and they're formerly called solutions engineers, sales engineers, and technical account managers. I think what I've learned is that solutions consultants are pre-sales and technical account managers are post-sales, but that's something that you can have a conversation with people about afterwards in networking. And these lightning talks will be discussing observability, metrics, React, GraphQL for APIs, and more. So now our first speaker on customer-facing technical roles at New Relic is Padmaja Gohil. So Padmaja is a senior solutions consultant at New Relic and loves being a sales engineer because it not only helps her stay at the cutting edge of technology, and she gets to work with a multitude of customers using these technologies. In her free time, she loves listening to music and adventure parks. Welcome, Padmaja.
Thank you, Angie. Hey, everyone. Very nice to meet you. Is everyone able to see my screen? Angie, can you just give me like a thumbs up?
Yay.
Okay, awesome. So I'm Padmaja Gohil. I'm currently a senior solutions engineer with New Relic, and today we're going to be talking about all things observability. So quick disclaimer, please do not hold me accountable to any sort of forward-looking statements. And before we dive into the presentation itself, I would like to give you guys a quick glimpse into my journey so far. So growing up, I've always wanted to be an engineer, but once I started my engineering degree, I realized that my interest lay somewhere at that nexus of tech and business, which led me to do my master's in engineering management, where I studied business concepts, but focused in high-tech industry. I've also previously dabbled in consulting, venture capital, and data privacy. I've been a solutions engineer with New Relic for the last 3 years, and I absolutely love what I do. So New Relic is an observability platform, and because of which I'm going to be talking about observability today. But at the same time, and in my day-to-day, I get to work with a lot of different customers, understand how they're using technology, and I help them achieve their goals using New Relic. So if you guys have any questions about what solutions consulting, solutions engineering, sales engineering is all about, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or my email address, and I would love to have a chat. The way I've structured the presentation today is we're going to talk about what were the changes that we saw in the software development space that led to observability? Why do we really need it? What it is? And the different phases in which you can implement it. And finally, we're going to touch, very quickly on observability as code. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground. So again, feel free to get in touch with me if you have more questions, or if you would like to learn more. So now let's take a look at how has the modern software industry evolved. If you look at the left, right, on the left side of this screen, you're looking at our past. Our past was primarily monoliths. They were stood up on on-premise servers, usually scaled vertically, very static operations-based scenario. We would release once or twice a year. And I still remember the days when we would have to manually update our softwares. Now, fast forward to today, right? Like today's architectures are more microservice-based, they're open source, they're more complicated, they're usually hosted on Kubernetes cluster. We went from releasing once or twice a year to like releasing maybe multiple times a day. So this has been great in terms of the business, right? Like we're able to push out new code, push out new releases and update our software faster, but it onboards with it a level of complexity when it comes to troubleshooting, detecting issues, and finding resolutions for it. So this, alongside other reasons, is why we need observability. So in the days of mainframes and static operations, right, when things went wrong, what would happen is we would have maybe a couple of dashboards that we would get alerted on. And usually these dashboards were static, and we had like run books for all of them to figure out what's going wrong and to fix issues. Now, typically, these systems would fail in the same manner over and over and again and again. So it was a little more simplistic than maybe today. Now, today, if things were to go wrong, I'd be staring at my screen, wondering what's going wrong. Like, has my cloud provider, is my cloud provider seeing an outage? Is someone deploying code, right? Like, is that the reason why I'm seeing some sort of an issue? Or it could be, I could be staring at the symptoms and not the root cause. So there's so many ways in which things could break that it's really hard and complicated in how we do troubleshooting today. Also, there has been an increased frequency of code deploys, right? So we went from like once or twice a year to like multiple times a day, which can increase the chances of things going wrong. We no longer have discrete application owners. We have distributed systems, but at the same time, we also have distributed teams working on things, right? So there is a need for contextualized data. So in case of if a person were to just come in blind, not knowing the history of the systems, they can quickly take a look at things and start fixing. So these are just some of the reasons why we need observability today. But let's take a look at what the definition is. So there are a lot of definitions out there, right? So the way I like to think about it is, how well do you understand your system from the work it does? And it enables you to do a lot of things. So for example, it enables you to collect and alert on the telemetry data types. So there's 4 telemetry data types, and these are the pillars of observability. And I'll kind of speak to those further in the presentation as well. But it's metrics, events, logs, and traces. So these are the 4 pillars of observability. Observability allows you to focus on your day-to-day, right? So as software engineers, your job is to, let's say, deploy code faster, come out with newer features. Your job is not to spend a lot of time in fixing issues. So observability also allows you to focus on that, right? It enables you to troubleshoot faster, and it makes sure that you're ensuring uptime and performance while you push out this newer code. It also gives you the confidence to push out newer code, right? Because let's say if things were to go wrong when you are deploying, you have the confidence that, yes, I have the system in place to fix those things. So it builds that culture of innovation as well. In a real life scenario, right? There are so many different ways in which you can implement observability, but there are 3 phases, like 3 broad phases in how we implement it. And I would like to kind of talk to you about it. So the first phase is the reactive phase. All of us might have heard this saying that you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So the first phase is where you start instrumenting your entire tech stack to collect data. So you're collecting metrics, events, logs, and traces from all of that tech stack. You are then understanding how your applications are behaving. So a lot of times you might not know what normal looks like for your applications, right? Like, what does your normal response time look like? What does the normal error rate look like? So the first phase is when you are establishing the normals and the baselines, and then you're setting up foundational alerts on it. So that's what the first phase is about. The second phase is now codifying your team's work. Now, when I say that, what I mean is you are setting up service level objectives for your application. Because what happens is you're seeing a plethora of signals coming at you. And you now need to understand, how do you measure the success of your application? And one of the ways to do that is by setting up service level objectives and service level indicators, which are SLIs. So let me give you an example of what an SLO can look like. So for a web application, an SLO could be that the videos should start playing within the 2 seconds and for 99% of the time during that 1 week period. So that is your SLO. Now the service level indicator, which is the SLI, measures the proportion of videos on the website that start playing in less than 2 seconds. So you start setting up these kinds of SLOs, SLIs, you measure them over time in the second phase. Now, lastly, the data-driven phase. The ultimate aim of observability is to help teams within a company make data-driven decisions. So you are doing a lot of trend analysis of like the SLOs and the SLIs that you set up, but at the same time, you're evangelizing this to the teams beyond, let's say, site reliability, DevOps, or application engineers. And you're pulling in folks from, let's say, customer support, product, right? Everyone's looking at the same kind of data and you're making decisions. And eventually you want to get to a stage where you can figure out how is it that your digital operations are impacting business KPIs. So for example, if you were an e-commerce website, if the page load of that e-commerce website increases by, let's say, 10%, are you seeing a drop in the number of users on the website? Are you seeing lesser number of things in your cart? So these are the kinds of relationships you want to start visualizing. and measuring. So that's like the last phase of observability. One of the things of the last phase is also being able to automate processes. And that's where observability as code comes into the picture. Now, observability as code can, again, mean a lot of things, right? Like it could mean that the way you are interacting with your observability platform, you're automating it, but it can also mean GitOps, config as code, infrastructure as code, CI/CD, right? Like whenever you hear these things, know that these are observability as code. Now, what we're doing essentially here is that we're taking some of the best practices from software development and we're applying it to the operations world. So think reproducible builds, reproducible deployments. You're automating processes, you're testing them, and you're making sure that no matter how many times you run these processes, you're getting the same result. There are a few things common as a part of observability as code. So firstly, observability as code it's literally code. So it does not have a UI. It is declarative. So you are specifying the exact state in which it should exist. So for example, if you write a piece of code to create an alert in New Relic, you should be able to take that same code or a template and then modify it slightly to create 1,000 alerts. So it's also reproducible. You are reducing the amount of time you're spending in managing your observability systems as well. So the first thing is it's declarative. Secondly, it's versioned and immutable. So ideally, it should not reside in a shared drive. Ideally, you should be using a Git for it. You should be able to go back and figure out what were the changes made if things were going wrong, right? So it should be versioned and immutable. And lastly, it's pulled and reconciled automatically. Now, what I mean by this is that if you had created a dashboard in New Relic or in any other observability system, and let's say one of your colleagues comes to you and says that, this is a great dashboard, I want to use it for my, for my own needs, they can go ahead, take the dashboard, and maybe they modify it. When you go into New Relic and you figure out that your dashboard is modified and you want actually revert the changes, you can directly take the code, apply it, and you can get your original dashboard. And now you can take the template that you used or the code that you use, and you can give it to your colleague and they can use it to create their own dashboard. So it's usually pulled and reconciled automatically. There are a lot of solutions available for observability as code, and I've mentioned some of these here. We also have our own templates for, let's say, Terraform. In case if you guys are interested, feel free to look at it in our docs page. But these are just like some of the solutions that you can use to implement observability as code. This brings me to an end of my presentation. I know that we covered a lot of ground, right? So in case if you guys are interested in knowing more, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or my email address. And thank you so much. I very much enjoyed speaking here.
Thank you, Padmaja. That was really great. And thank you for leaving an email address so people can reach out to you with any questions. So moving on to our next speaker, Kate is a lead principal technical account manager at New Relic. She comes with a background in helping customers thrive in their business with the latest software monitoring tools. In her current role, she partners with customers to help them with their full stack observability requirements. So welcome, Kate.
Hey, Angie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for hosting us. Give me a second to share my screen and put it in slide mode. All right, so I'll be talking about customer success and value realization through value metrics. I'm just going to jump into a little bit of legal disclaimer. So don't make any financial decisions based on our discussions today and or any statements we make, and some proprietary copyright information. All right, a little bit about me. My name is Kate, and I'm a principal technical account manager here at New Relic. As TAMs, we are an extension to our customers' teams. We help them with their full stack observability requirements. We want to make sure they see value, and we basically help them get enabled, follow best practices, and we work as a trusted advisor with them. A little bit data point about me. I love working out. I love yoga, especially Bikram yoga. I love to travel, and I'm a data nerd. Okay, our agenda for today is going to be evolution of maturity, goals for technical account management, our maturity journey, defining maturity metrics, and how can you define maturity in your organization. All right, starting off with evolution of maturity. So in our evolution and journey, we found ourselves improving efficiency from 4 to 5 hours to 1 minute by automating our solution. And I'm going to explain how we did this. So as things evolved over time, we found our defined metrics to be meaningful, and we did find out more about our customers' maturity and how we can help them improve stickiness. For example, are they using custom attributes, or do they have data instrumented for more visibility? And with our help, they started getting more mature within the platform, and we were able to identify the gaps, improve upon them. We did soon realize to deliver an observability platform value for our customers, we needed to recognize value drivers and use cases that actually deliver those business outcomes for each and every customer. For example, to improve customer experience, the quadrant you see on the left-hand side, we had to understand our customers' business needs. So cart abandonment, any association with an operational gap like card crash rates were stuff that we needed to figure out. So we identified the steps to maturity is basically summarized in alignment. What that means is we need to align customer priorities to the observability value drivers and agree on prescribed observability use cases, and then enable based on an agreed upon description work streams with the customer. And then finally, value realization, reflecting on the business and the operational KPIs that we agreed upon during and prior to going through maturity. So we actually evolved from just collecting metrics to quantifying metrics into meaningful business values with a growth mindset, of course. And we realized without having a continuous growth mindset, we won't be able to evolve and improve our solution. Next thing is the goals that are for technical account management. So having an evolved automated way to quantify metrics into business values provides us leverage as TAMs as in technical account managers. We now have data to analyze customer usage to reduce overall churn by identifying any sort of gaps we have in utilization, by providing enablement based on usage, and engage platform users and drive valuable engagement by meeting them where they're at. And directly communicating with our customers and being a liaison internally and a voice for our customers. And essentially, we want to reach value realization with them. The next thing I want to cover is our maturity journey. So our journey basically started at looking at our platform per customer account and literally eyeballing metrics we had identified as crucial to understanding and analyzing customer data. It was really hard to assess the pieces of the product they were using by manually assessing their usage and engagement. And the normal customer metrics success wasn't really working for us anymore. So for example, if they were building dashboard, this wasn't showing us the full picture or the reason behind it. That's looking at their user behavior. It was very one-dimensional, and we didn't really know if they were getting value out of it. So we basically had to look deeper into the metrics and then identify and associate it with value drivers. So how do we define maturity metrics to get to that point? So as a team, we basically started asking ourselves, what kind of results do we want to see from this? Ultimately, what does a good maturity look like? And what does it look like for each product? We needed KPIs to show actual investments. For example, if we looked at our alerting product, we wanted to drive an alerting strategy or potentially set our customers up with anomaly detection. Next, we had to break each product into maturity metrics. Initially, this was done manually through APIs, and us eyeballing accounts. But after we broke down our KPIs by product, we had to describe a desired performance level and determine how data is interpreted. We had to set up thresholds, place and score for each of the metrics that make upper and lower limits of a desired performance. And this basically allowed us to understand overall maturity for each customer product using a heat map, and really made maturity pop up the page for us. And now that we had our results defined, maturity metrics chosen by product, we had to basically come up with a way to automate this. So our internal teams were able to automate the process, build out an app using APIs, grab the required data from accounts, and assess maturity. And finally, the last piece of the puzzle was to ensure we document in every single steps our definitions that are associated with each of the metrics collected for further analysis. So our document includes a breakdown of the products, the metrics associated with it, and each and every single step you need to take to improve your score. So from all of this, we want to kind of cover how can you define maturity in your organization? So it really comes down to 3 pillars. Goals and baseline. You have to ask yourself, what does maturity look like for your organization? Describe those intended results. Do you understand the alternate measures for those intended results? Then you move on to data identification. Have you identified any sort of composite indices as needed? And do you collect any of the data right now? Is it accessible to you? And finally, business alignment. So have you thought about targets, thresholds? Do you have a baseline that you can work with? And then finally, have you tied your maturity metrics to business values that deliver value realization? That concludes my presentation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that talk, Kate. So our next speaker is Carolina Rotstein. She is a solutions consultant at New Relic. She is also an economist and political scientist that fell in love with programming and data and is passionate about untangling holistic customer journeys across complex stacks, which she'll be speaking about today. So welcome, Carolina.
Can everybody see my screen?
Perfect.
All right. Oh, so today we're going to talk about browser monitoring and how it can help us improve UX and UI. Some safe harbor information, a bit of housekeeping, some proprietary information, and just please don't use this to make any financial decisions. So a bit about me. I'm a solutions consultant for New Relic in the commercial e-sales team. I'm an economist and a political scientist, but I fell in love with programming and big data. I'm passionate about untangling holistic customer journeys across complex stack, and my most previous role included optimizing UX and UI for the gaming industry. And yes, we did collect a lot of data. So today's agenda, we're going to focus on improving the website's UX and UI and using real user monitoring for this. Also, we'll cover why we should focus on UX and UI optimizations and some of the metrics that we can use to do this, as well as the metrics that come out of the box for New Relic and some other tools. And then an approach towards optimizing customer experience, including UX and UI, the traditional way and the enhanced way using big data. So my peers talked a bit about observability maturity, and at New Relic, we focus on data-driven decisions, and we want to have an approach with this framework towards taking data-driven decisions. Now, in this part, customer experience is closer to product and support. While it does have a lot of positive impact into how customer support views their product and just impact on their KPIs, it's mostly geared around design and product in development. So experience optimization, and a big portion of that is user experience and also the user interface optimizations are closer to the revenue. So even though it's at the bottom of the funnel, any impact that we might have into optimizing the experience will have a monetary increase for the companies that we're in. So first, I'd like to talk about browser versus synthetics. So we talk a lot about the jungle versus the lab. The jungle would be empirical data. So just every browser, every device, every location, and what your customers are using. And the lab will be how we are tracking the health of the site just as we mapped it. So we eliminate all the variables to just understand performance and solve problems quickly. This is done by synthetics, and it just, the jungle piece or the real user monitoring is once we deploy that application into the wild. So the users might take paths that we just did not foresee. For that, we use browser monitoring, and this has, it's an essential tool for user experience, and it has a couple of places that we would focus on. So product usage, front-end performance issues, content strategy, and in this case, websites, UX and UI. So I'd like to talk a bit about the metrics that we can use for this. These are not all the metrics, but I strongly recommend this as a start. So just for front-end performance and monitoring, we have Core Web Vitals, the user time on site, and it's just user-centric health metrics, such as throughput chart. For New Relic, we can divide what the time that it takes to load is split by the front end versus the back end. But for product usage, which is getting closer to that UX and UI, we track that funnel. And these are those conversion funnel related metrics that map to the business. And these are unique to every company and every website. And those are success events, which can be form fills, video watch, purchase, and business classifications. So these are custom metrics that we would map. Then we have all these audience insights such as device and location and vanity metrics. The vanity metrics normally come out of every tool, but they're a great place to just look at your application, sort of like the canary in a coal mine. Then for content strategy, we can see how users are navigating through the site, such as, and the metrics that we would use are link positions, most popular, previous page, the next page. And we also have pages report, such as the most popular pages, the time spent on site, how long it takes to load an asset. But we also can track audience insights. And this can come from your BI data. And New Relic can take just any sort of data, but with other tools, you can certainly integrate it. And this can be things that are a bit more robust, such as persona development, even the VIP level of your users or the user IDs. And then very targeted towards UX and UI, and specific to real user monitoring, we have the time spent on task, which will be the time before a user completes a success event. The ease to perform a task, rage clicks, which is just a user frantically clicking. Marketing funnels is a good one. And in New Relic, we have something called the AppDeck score, which is just taking into account the error rate and the load time to proxy some of the survey-based customer satisfaction, traditional UX and UI metrics. Now, very related to UI in just design, we have A/B tests, popular device sizes, a screen size, and size orientation and night mode. Those are a few ones in there. And finally, I would like to show you what comes out of the box of New Relic. So this is browser monitoring. And we have those core web vitals that users spent on site, initial page load, throughput, and some other additional charts. And this comes just out of loading a user agent, and is as simple as adding a marketing tag. And this dashboards just magically appear. But if we go back to talking about UX and UI, why is this important? And it's, like 68%, and I'm talking here about e-commerce just because it's the easiest, cleanest use case to see revenue changes when you deploy UX and UI changes. And we can see that a lot of e-commerce, 68% of them just had performance issues. And that translates into 40% of those issues resulting in revenue lost. And for instance, most e-commerce retailers have reported that they would like to have a response time below 2 seconds. And 90% of that website response time on average occurs due to the loading of front-end resources. This is why it's so important to start your optimization with your front end as well. Some core customer experience questions that real user monitoring will help you solve is, for instance, if your website is easy and friendly to use, and that would be through the bounce rate, for instance, whether it's easy to navigate or not, and that will be through the number of pages that your users take to get somewhere. And ideally, you want to slice all those additional page views just because you want a seamless interaction with your site. Just think about loading a YouTube video and have it click 20 times before you go to the music that you want. And for instance, how easy it is to get in touch with a customer agent for your user. Now, not all sites want you to immediately get those agents, but those are done through custom events. So you see how many, you track that chat click or that phone call on a mobile browser as a success event. And just how comfortable your visitors are after landing in your site can be done through a number of other metrics that we track on browser. Why is this important as well, just to do it via RUM, is because it's big data and data driven. So if we look at traditional UX and UI optimization, it's done through user research, such as interviews, focus groups, usability testing, and they would put like a couple of people to see how easy it is to finish a task on their site through surveys, A/B testing sometimes, and session recording. Now, the size of this data tends to be, from my experience, to 100 people to 1,000 people. When we're talking about big data, it's millions of people. So it helps us prioritize and not get narrow focus on the people for which we're optimizing to. And that is done to A/B testing. In some companies that are very developed, they do multivariate testing. So they have several versions of the same design, such as the Netflix is one of the big guys, at the same time. And they're just running algorithms while they're doing that. And the way they pass that data into their systems is via an integration to their either browser or mobile tracking. And same session recording, conversion funnel. This is just big data that allows you to ultimately do persona building. And in the particular case of New Relic, this is fully integrated with observability. Now, just because I'm coming from New Relic, I would like to show you how easy it is to implement custom events and attributes, which are those business events and additional metrics that I was talking to. So this is just an example of a JavaScript snippet, and this is how you would pass it into New Relic, and it gives you that full stack observability that my peers were talking about. And that's it.
Thank you, Carolina. Our next speaker is Solmaira. She's a technical account manager at New Relic based out of Atlanta, serving as a technical advisor for enterprise customers in Latin America. She currently serves as chair of the Relics of Color ERG, which she'll be speaking about today. Welcome, Solmaira.
Hi, everyone. My name is Solmaira Flores-Valadez, and I'm a technical account manager at New Relic. I've been with New Relic for about over 2.5 years. And I serve as pretty much like a technical advisor to some of our larger enterprise customers within the Latin America region. So I'm like a post-sales resource to them, helping them get the most out of New Relic, and also providing trainings, things like that, to make sure that they are utilizing New Relic to the best of their abilities. Today, I'm going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the part that it plays in my life, how I was able to find a community with New Relic ERGs, which are employee resource groups. right, so a little bit about me. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live in Atlanta. I went to the University of Georgia. I am a first generation Latina, Mexican American, first person in my family to go to college. I am a woman in tech, and I'm also a dog mom. So first, I wanted to start off with a few definitions around what diversity, equity, inclusion are. And then I'll jump in and talk a little bit more about what it means to me, how I got involved, and all of that. So diversity is the presence of differences that may include race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, nationality, socioeconomic status, language, disability, age, religious commitment, or political perspective. And these populations have been and remain underrepresented within the broader society and within practitioners in the field as well. Within the workplace. Equity is promoting justice, impartiality, and fairness within the procedures, processes, and distribution of resources by institutions or systems. Equity is really the approach to ensure that everybody has access to the same opportunity. And in the context of the workplace, how is it that employees have access to the same levels of attraction, promotion, and retention within the company? And then lastly, we have inclusion, which is an outcome to ensure that those that are from these diverse backgrounds actually feel and or are welcome. And it pretty much boils down to people with different identities feeling or being valued. All right, so why is it important to me? So I actually started doing DE&I type of work long before I even knew it was DE&I work. As I mentioned, I went to the University of Georgia, and the UGA is a predominantly white institution. So there was very little people that looked like me. So I was always looking for, my community, people that looked like me, that shared common backgrounds. But then at the same time, got involved with certain organizations such as Students for Latino Empowerment that not only helped, build that community, gave me that social aspect in college, but also we were doing DE&I work, students into the campus. We have various events throughout the year where we would, pretty much show them the ropes, let them know, like, if I can do it, you can do it. They'll be able to tour campus. We would give them workshops around financial aid, how to get started, the college journey, and all of that. So that's kind of what sparked, I guess, that interest in being involved within DE&I type of efforts. As I have here, it's important for me to lift as I climb, to be that change that I wish to see in the world. And also, DE&I has been very important in my life, not only because I'm able to, in a way, give back, but also it's helped me in my professional and my personal growth, being able to develop certain leadership skills. And a little bit about how I got involved at New Relic. So I was involved in college with those type of organizations. As I left college and I moved on to my professional career, my first job, I worked at a big accounting firm. I got there similar to when I joined UGA, not a lot of people that looked like me. They had a Hispanic network. I joined that. We did a lot of social events, but at the same time, we also, did a lot of also lifting as we climb. Bringing in students. We also did events for students and things like that. So I, loved being plugged in, being that person, going to recruiting events and seeing others like me. And then being able to see that, you know, they could also do it. And then after that, I switched careers. I came over to New Relic, and as soon as I joined, I let my manager know that I was interested in still being a part of something like this. I asked if we had a Hispanic network. He told me he wasn't familiar if there was a Hispanic network, but there were employee resource groups, and got me connected to the person that was the DE&I manager at the time. Met with her, and you know, I talked about my experiences, and she got me connected to the Relics of Color, which is the employee resource groups for all of our for our POC at New Relic. I got to meet them, you know, loved what they were doing, got to be part of participate in some of their events. And when I joined, it was right around Hispanic Heritage Month. I asked if there was anything I could help with. There, at the moment, the Atlanta office was pretty new. So there wasn't a lot of representation there. So I told them that I wanted to host an event. I was brand new. I didn't know how people were going to take it, but I knew that I wanted to do this. Since it was a little bit later in the Hispanic Heritage timeframe, I decided to give it like a twist. So we did a Day of the Dead event, which I have some pictures here. I put this together. We painted skulls, and then we watched Coco, and we also ordered tamales, and we had a really good time doing this event. And that was pretty much my golden ticket into not only being a member of the Relics of Color, but becoming an executive, one of the ROC execs. After I did that, the leader of the Relics of Color reached out and was like, oh, you know, I want you to be part of the exec board. And then that's how I got plugged in, my golden ticket. And I've loved it ever since. I've been able to help with a lot. Currently, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Relics of Color here. I have our exec board of our offsite that we had earlier this year, where we got together to build out our strategy, the events. We host and we celebrate different events throughout the year: Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander Month, putting together content around that. And then on the right-hand side, that was us at the sales kickoff. We managed to get people together before 8 a.m. for a breakfast. It was great. It was intimate. We had our Relics of Color sponsor, Tracy Williams. She's our Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, as well as our Chief People Officer there. Being part of the Relics of Color, being part of the exec board has been, like I said, great. I've been able to learn a lot, gain exposure to different things. For example, we meet with our C-suite on a quarterly basis. So being able to have visibility into the C-suite, and not only that, but be able to represent the Relics of Color as a whole, be able to communicate some of our challenges, what we're doing, what we, you know, where we want to get, our goals, and then listening to us and our needs, and seeing where and what they can do to help. So, you know, it's been great on the social aspect. I've made really good friends, but also helped me grow professionally. So I talked about the Relics of Color, but we do have other employee resource groups. We have the Women at New Relic, we have the Veterans at New Relic, and we have Access at New Relic. which encompasses neurodiversity, mental health, and disability. Relic of Color, which is the ERG that I'm a part of. And then we also have our Rainbow Relics for our LGBTQ plus relics. So these are the different ERGs that you can get involved with. And at Relic, we are working towards a more perfect new relic. So these are some of the initiatives that we have going on. We definitely believe that inclusion means everyone. We want to make sure that we're having some progress. We understand that there isn't always, or there is always more work that needs to be done, but we do value the progress over the perfection. And these are some of the initiatives that we have at New Relic to help us accomplish that. We have, for example, the Mikey rule, named in honor of our departed team VP of engineering, who was the executive sponsor of our first employee resource group, which was the Relics of Color. And this Mikey rule focuses on sourcing and hiring more relics from underrepresented groups. So whenever we have an opening, this Mikey rule kicks in. We also have leader-led action plans. So these were started in 2020 by our founder, Lou Cerny. He challenged the company to level up with DE&I leader-led action plans to maximize the recruitment, retention, and career growth for underrepresented groups. And now it's one of the top level organizational priorities across the board for every single part of our business. We also have DE&I working groups. Our company leaders, like I said, sit down with us, with the ERG executives, to ensure that our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is put into practice around the globe. Just wanted to call out some of our progress that we've seen with these initiatives. We've definitely increased our BIPOC engagement. We've also helped reduce bias. There's different trainings that our managers have to take every year or every so often around bias. We've also reached pay equity. There was an analysis that was made a couple of years ago that took a look at the pay and made sure that everyone's pay was equal. There's been a lot of progress lately around career mobility, where we've built a lot of mentorship groups throughout the different businesses to be able to help the career mobility of our underrepresented groups. And then, as I mentioned, we also have the Mikey rule, which focuses on the recruiting efforts. All right, well, that's all that I have for today. Thank you all for joining. Have a great day.
Our next speaker is Nora, who is a solutions engineer at New Relic, where she advises enterprise clients on their observability engineering practices to answer the what, how, and why of system performance. Her research focuses on the application of blockchain, and she speaks Portuguese, Spanish, and French, and resides in Florida. So welcome, Nora.
Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing? Well, I'll assume you're doing fine because I can't hear you, but can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Like everyone else said, I don't know enough to make any predictions that you guys could invest in, but anyway, welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about observability in the context of Web3. So a little bit about me. Like Angie said, my name is Nora Shannon Johnson. I'm a solutions consultant, which basically means that I help customers answer the what, how, and why of system performance. Outside of work, I love languages and linguistics. I love planting things, but everything I've ever planted has died, unfortunately, so still working on that, and skateboarding. Today, we're going to talk about applying the principles of observability to Web3 and what the specifics of monitoring blockchain technologies looks like. I took an interest in this because I work with a lot of financial services and e-commerce organizations in Latin America. So the integration of blockchain into their existing business operations is a big question for them right now for reasons that I'll get into in a few minutes. This is not New Relic's main use case, But as a solutions consultant, a lot of times customers come to you with their data, their technology, and their business requirements and say, make it work, which is my favorite part of the job when somebody says, how do you do this? And I say, I don't know, let's figure it out together. So this is an example of doing that. Over the next 9 or 10 minutes, we're going to talk at a very, very high level about what Web3 is, why we would care about monitoring it, what specifically we would be monitoring, what we want to look at, and then a quick example of what that might look like. So to get started, what is Web3? Web3 is the name given to the idea, and idea is a very key word here, of a new sort of internet that is built using decentralized blockchains. As a disclaimer, throughout this entire presentation, I am describing the idea, not the reality of what may come to fruition. So again, Web3 is powered by the concept of, or by blockchain technology, and blockchain is a relatively new method of storing data online, and it's built around 2 core concepts, those being decentralized computing and encryption. So the fact that it is decentralized means that files or data is shared across many computers or servers, rather than centralized in a single server or group of servers. You might hear it referred to as a peer-to-peer network for that reason. The fact that it's decentralized also means that it's immutable. You can't change data on the blockchain, because in order to do so, you would have to corrupt data on every single machine that's participating in the network, which is just really not feasible when you're looking at a large scale blockchain like Ethereum, which is the example we're going to use. And then the fact that it's encrypted means that people can't access it unless they have permission to do so. And you can kind of give and rescind access as you choose. So why would we want to monitor Web3? Frankly, for a lot of the same reasons that we already monitor the existing technology, the Web 2 technology, so to speak, in the same industries. So for financial services, that's e-commerce integrating with blockchain for payments. And it's important to note that this isn't just like cryptocurrency exchanges. This is brands like Gucci and the Dallas Mavericks and Microsoft, Whole Foods, even Save the Children. They all accept one or more cryptocurrencies for payments. So across a ton of different industries, this is an important aspect of their technology stack, right? We've also got healthcare. So one of the driving use case for applying blockchain technology to healthcare is to restore the rights of data back to users or patients in this case. So you would be able to give or rescind access to your health records to a healthcare professional organization at will, whereas right now your test records or health records are held in a database owned by maybe some company like Quest, and you wouldn't really necessarily be able to remove it if you wanted to. And then finally, supply chain. And supply chain is arguably at the enterprise level, the most interesting use case, the most sought after use case for blockchain, specifically the validation of provenance or origin and authenticity. So using a public ledger like Ethereum, you could actually trace the roots of a product that you purchased to ensure that it is in fact, organic or fair trade, or even from the location that you believe it to be from, which is a pretty interesting use case. So in all of them, there's many more, but in all of these use cases, we're talking about people's privacy, their security, their well-being, obviously their financial assets. So the fact that data on blockchain is immutable and that it's decentralized doesn't mean that it's immune to failure or to attack. It simply is creating this new sort of monitoring paradigm. So what might we monitor on the blockchain? I'm not going to explain all these, but like people before me have said, the slide decks will be shared out. But you might monitor something like a decentralized application or DApp, a decentralized autonomous organization or DAO, decentralized finance exchanges or DeFi, and then non-fungible tokens, which I think everybody's probably familiar with, the infamous apes, or NFTs, right? Lots of acronyms here because it's a mouthful. And then of course you can monitor the blockchain itself too, which is the example that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the Ethereum blockchain. So if you're not familiar, Ethereum is, you guessed it, a blockchain platform with its own cryptocurrency, Ether, shortened to ETH, and it's also got a programming language called Solidity, which you can use to write smart contracts and decentralized applications so that you can actually interact with the blockchain. This is by far, especially for DeFi, the most popular blockchain, but there are a lot of alternatives that are gaining popularity, things like Cardano and Solana, because they're faster and cheaper than working with Ethereum. So monitoring a blockchain or assets that are deployed to a blockchain is going to include both the typical metrics and data types that we'd be used to seeing, as well as some that are specific to this realm, right? So there's three, example categories here. We've got system performance, security events, and business metrics. And if you go from left to right, this is sort of like more familiar to less familiar. So something like system performance is something that we're very used to seeing. When Netflix is, well, all the time it's up and running, they want to know how quickly transactions are executing, the rate of error, as well as resource utilization. The only difference being in a world of Web3, this might be, the number of nodes, but very similar to what we see today in terms of the number of idle versus busy workers. For security, this is very important. We've all heard about many attacks made to different blockchain or cryptocurrency exchanges. So things like changes to access controls, when there's a lot of failed login attempts from especially a specific IP address or geographic location where you don't normally have those. And then finally, unusual transaction patterns. So there being a lot of transaction outside of your normal business operating hours. And then all the way to the right, and this is where we see things that are more specific to the use cases that I described earlier, things like measuring the gas fee. So when you interact with blockchain, you have to pay a transaction fee, and it's a dynamic transaction fee. It changes throughout the day. We'll take a look at that in a minute when we get into New Relic. But that's something you want to pay attention to, because whether you are paying that or receiving that, that affects your bottom line. You'd also want to pay attention to things like the number of active users or wallet holders, the number of active connections, and then of course the number of miners that are mining. And then finally, something like the rate of currency being paid out. So as you probably know, miners mine because they get paid for it, right? But there's a lot of blockchain platforms, especially ones that are oriented towards like the arts and culture, where they will actually pay you for posting your content to their platform, right? So they pay the content creators. And you want to know, again, whether you're paying or receiving, or you're kind of somewhere in the middle. As an integrator, you want to know what the rate of payout is, right? So how might we do this? We know what we want to look at. We know the importance of it, but how might we actually do that? So we're gonna go through very quickly the kind of two pieces that fit together, and then we're gonna look at what that looks like in an observability platform. So in any situation, there's sort of two parts to monitoring. There's the data and the platform, right? So there's how can we get it being the data. And then the second part is how do we make sense of it? Because just having the data is not super helpful to anyone unless you're a computer, right? So we might use something like web3.py, which is a Python library for interacting with Ethereum. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. You can read data, you can send transaction, you can even set the gas price if you are the owner, not the owner, but you're responsible for the operation of the blockchain. And so we see on the right-hand side, we can import the Web3 library, confirm that we're connected to Web3. And then as the last example shows, we can read block data or look at different people's wallets. So here I'm pulling Snoop Dogg and Paris's wallet balance, which again, we'll take a look at in a minute. So this is the part of how we're getting it. And if you're more of a fan of JavaScript, there's also a web3.js library that you can use instead. I'm just a Python loyalist. And then the second part, which is how do we make sense of it? So using a wonderful observability platform like New Relic, we can use an API suite to pull in the metrics, events, logs, and traces that are important to us. And then you can look at, all of the block statistics for the last, hour, week, or month, or whatever the case may be. So let's take a look at what that might look like if we were actually porting it over to, oops. Oh, I didn't mean to unshare. Let me reshare. Porting it over to an observability platform. Okay, so this is a simple use case, but this is just basically a dashboard that I put together, right? We've got our cool little, I don't own this guy, unfortunately. No Ethereum funds for that. But we can look at changes to the different whales. So here I'm tracking people like Snoop Dogg. He's kind of buying and selling all over the place. We've got Lindsay Lohan, Mark Cuban. We can see the top miners for the period of time, the gas price, that's what I mentioned earlier. And then again, like the block activity, which is interesting to see, right? So whether you are responsible, you're part of the some exchange that is leveraging the Ethereum blockchain, or you are a decentralized application developer, or maybe you're just somebody that is posting their content or their NFTs to a blockchain, this is all going to be relevant for you. You can also make sort of actionable insights based on the data that you port over. So if we take a look at, for example, logs, right? And logs are just sort of like step-by-step data coming from either applications or servers or what have you. And in this case, it's coming from the Ethereum blockchain. I'm going to filter on a certain block number. Let's do this guy, right? And we can actually see, and I'm going to shut this down. We can actually see the step-by-step of what it looks like. We can see that transaction was requested, that the block creation was initiated, blocks were then sent to nodes in the network, it got validated, transaction is now complete, and then they update that they send that update to the network, the block gets added to it, and the proof of work is dispersed, people get paid on it. But as we know, things do not always work as we anticipate that they will in technology. So if we take a look at this other block, right, we can see that in this example, the transaction is requested, the block creation is initiated, the block is sent to the nodes in the network, but then the transaction is pending validation several times. So we might do something like create an automated remediation workflow here. So based on maybe the messages, the strings in this message, or repeated data, or examples of the same messages over a long period of time, we could actually set it up such that it automatically triggers external events based on what we see in the log messages. Again, this has been a very quick and very high level example of what you might see if you wanted to monitor something on the blockchain, and how you could make use of that information in a wonderful observability platform like New Relic. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to talk to you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora. So Sarah is a solutions consultant at New Relic. She loves working with data, and in a previous life was a math teacher. And she uses her skills to help customers use their own data to improve their uptime, performance, resilience, reliability, and customer experience. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, all. Hopefully you can see me and my slides.
Yes.
Are we good? Okay. Hi. All right. Hi, all. I'm excited to talk to you all about APIs and getting your data when you want it and how you want it. It's a very common theme here at New Relic. We love data. We're data nerds. And we have a safe harbor just for legal purposes. So a quick bio about me. Yes, I've probably been in tech for 3.5, 4 years. Before that, I was a math teacher. I taught middle school and high school math. I did attend Hackbright Academy, so I'm a boot camp graduate. If you have any questions about that, please reach out. I'm a mom of 2, plus I have a puppy, a lab mix, and then you can see the hamster in the background. I'm a huge reader, and you'll see one of the projects I walk you through is all about books. The last book I read was Stalingrad, super interesting. And the best part of my job, is working with customers and helping them solve their problems. And yes, we are all about data and using data. So feel free to put stuff in the chat or follow up with me afterwards. So here are my objectives for my talk. I am still a teacher at heart. I want you guys to understand what REST APIs are, how they're used, what is GraphQL, and what are some interesting trends in APIs today. I want you to understand the difference between REST APIs and GraphQL APIs, and possibly articulate use cases for each. Also, we're going to be talking about GraphQL's query and mutations and just making sure you understand the difference between that. And then I am giving you all homework, right? So after this session, if you haven't played with API calls, go find some APIs, play with them. Go play with GraphQL, do some queries and mutations. If you need a GraphQL API Explorer, New Relic, you can sign up for a free account and play with our GraphQL API, which we call NerdGraph. So feel free to do that. So APIs, API stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's basically a way for clients and servers to talk to each other, right? It's a set of protocols, and it's called a REST. I'm going to be talking about REST APIs because those are usually the ones, I would say they're the most popular. And REST is short for RESTful, meaning stateless, right? So the state of the client doesn't affect the state of the server. They should be able to talk no matter what's going on within their own environments. And I like to think of API calls as programs throwing frisbees back and forth. And even though the frisbee is actually data, right? But a client will make a call, throw the frisbee to a server. The server kind of gets the frisbee, sees if there are any instructions, and throws the frisbee back as a response And you either, if it all goes well, you get a 200 response. If it doesn't, you'll get one of the 400s or 500s based on whatever the errors are. So let's take a look at what an API call looks like. So this is code from my virtual bookshelf project that I did at Hackbright, right? So I allowed folks to kind of build out this visual bookshelf of the books they were reading. And the main API I used was Google's Books API, where I could get a thumbnail of a picture of the cover of the book and a lot of information. So when I was seeding my database, I had a list of titles and authors, and then I made calls to the Google API, book API, using my Google API key. I used the Python HTTP request library to get that information, and then I stored the response in a dictionary in JSON form so that I could fill out my database with all sorts of interesting things. So if you notice, there's, oh, and then this was, hold on, I was gonna say, there's a few things. So we have a URL, right? I have some variables in here, parameters that change that I had to go through in a for loop. And then I also needed permission to have access to APIs. So those are the key components of an API call. So this was one book. This was one response I got back from Google's API. There's a lot going on here. It's really, yeah, I would say there's a lot of information here, some of which I needed, a lot of which I didn't need, and I had to sort through it and figure out, okay, what is going to be helpful to me in my project, and then get rid of the rest, which, if you notice, is a lot of waste. My code was not optimized. This was like the slow part of my program, which if I go back, like this is how I would focus on this and try to do this in a better way, just because it ate up so much time. So to summarize, right, I kind of showed you what the components of the REST API and the results are, right? You have to have a URL, you have to call to someplace, you can send parameters. When variables, like I did title and author, you usually need a key to access the API, so you have permission to get the information. You need some HTTP requests. I use the Python's request, but I'll show you a curl snippet when I do the GraphQL. And the other interesting thing to note is that each API, right, you can call various APIs, will have their own way of formatting the data. Google Books API just sent me everything I could possibly need about a book, right? But and it was up to me to kind of go through and figure out the structure of it. I showed you a get REST API call, but there are also posts where you can actually post data to the API, you can update data, or you can delete it. And I kind of said, oh, this was kind of ugly data, right? There was a nested JSON. I found out the hard way that sometimes some of the things I wanted were empty and I had to find workarounds. I had to go and I had to clean up and structure the data. And there are even updates and the data would get restructured and I'd have to go back and figure out how to do that. So I am glad to now transition to a new way to get data called GraphQL. It is also an API, but it is a very structured way we can access data. So this is an example of New Relic's Nerd Graph API Explorer. And if you notice, right, I have to my left a query builder with very specific kind of key value pairs that I can build out for a query. So here I'm going to query an account and get the name and ID. And here I'm going to do an entity search. You all have been hearing us talk about observability and learning about applications and performance and getting metrics and events. And this is kind of a way you can go in. I'm just going to get the name of things I want to monitor, the type. I'm going to get a special GUI, and then I'm just actually going to get the tags that I've tagged with my entity. And it will pop up here in a very nice structured JSON. I know exactly how many levels I need to go in to get specific information. And then here's kind of how you could do it and build in a program. We talk about automation and observability as code. It's really easy to take these GraphQL calls and build in structures and processes to get the information that you can then take action on. So again, here's just the API link. I have some headers with my key. And then here I'm sending this query that's going to go to the GraphQL server and pass back all this information about this application name box that's in development. All right, so let me quickly summarize kind of what we did or what I just showed you with GraphQL, right? So instead of posting or getting data, we're going to query data and mutate data in order to update it. You might see that you can use GraphQL iteratively, right? I had that GUI ID that I could query for and then use it to change if I needed to update the application, add it to an alert policy, add it to a dashboard. It's kind of nice. You can just build off each other. I know exactly what data I'm going to get, and I'm only going to get that data. It's going to be nice and structured. It's going to be fast. And I'll tell you right now, New Relic is powered by this nerd graph, which you saw. That data that we accessed, we inside our platform also use it to access or to build out all the dashboards and charts. I should say that GraphQL was developed by Facebook in like 2012. And obviously when you're processing that much amount of data, right, you want to be specific about the data you get and get it as quickly as possible. The one downside is it does require a lot of upfront work. You have to build out that data schema so that folks can get the access. But once you have it built, you have a very powerful GraphQL engine. There's some other cool things, like you don't have to, I was going to say with my API call, I had to call it many times in that for loop, right? Because I could only get one book at a time. In GraphQL, you can make multiple calls even to multiple servers to get multiple data requests. So it's just a lot more robust and flexible. So I'm quickly going to go through this slide. I think from the other talks, you've kind of seen how we use data and how we want access to data and how we want to build it out programmatically and automate and really be able to empower our empower our customers to use their data in a lot of different ways. And some of those, are alerts, getting alerted on any issues, updating, with microservices and, Kubernetes, you can spin things up, spin things down. You need to add them to alert policies or delete them. I also work with customers a lot about either storing or dropping data they don't need. Sometimes companies need to store their logs to be in compliance with certain data rules. And so we can export data rules in NerdGraph to AWS buckets, so they meet that requirement. We did talk about dashboards or others talked about dashboards and SLOs. You can update dashboards with GraphQL. You can add things. You can subtract things. You can actually have a call to get a PDF. So if you need to email it to your superior and be like, hey, look at our application performance for the week, you're able to do that with a GraphQL API call. And then synthetics as well, if you want to check on ping checks if anything's failing, or if you need to update, add endpoints, you can all do that in GraphQL. I think I'm good on time. I was just going to quickly show you how you can build out the query in the query builder. So here, let's see, maybe I'll get the synthetic monitor. If I just wanted a list of synthetic monitors, I could just click whatever I wanted to see. I could add here, and when I press play, it just comes up to the right. And I did add a permalink, so if maybe there was something I noticed, it was a critical alert and I wanted to go check it out, I could quickly copy and paste or build out a script to go into New Relic and kind of see what was happening. Oh, looks like this check is okay, but I can go in and kind of get that view. If I wanted to mutate, I could just continue to build out. Let's say I wanted to create a workload. I could build out a workload using whatever data here. And you can use the curl up here. You could use our New Relic command line interface. It's really flexible and robust. And for all the data nerds out there, it's just really fun to use. So that was my talk. Hopefully you picked up a lot or a little about REST APIs and GraphQL and the differences. Just wanted to let you know my team is hiring, so please reach out, chat me up if you have questions, but thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sarah, for that talk and demo on GraphQL. It's very informative. I'm sure people have lots of questions, would like to connect with you. So thank you so much. So our next speaker, we're going to try Joanne again. So Joanne is a senior technical account manager at New Relic and has been working directly with customers, helping them use and implement the New Relic platform, including best practices. And prior to that, she was a solutions architect at Delta Airlines in Atlanta. So welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Angie. So, all right. Hello, everyone. I am Joanne De Leon, and I will be talking about the power of React.js and how it transformed the New Relic platform to be an open, connected, and programmable platform. So before I get started, I'd like to share some tidbits about myself. I am a senior technical account manager. I have been with New Relic for 3.5 years, working directly with customers, acting as a technical advisor and solutions architect to help them implement their observability use cases. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I graduated with a math degree, but never really thought I'd work in the IT industry. But in the past 20-something years, I have worn a lot of different IT hats, including a software developer, a designer, architect, and project manager. Outside of work, my wife and I enjoy traveling, playing bocce, and cuddling with our 2 adorable orange tabbies. So for this talk, I will introduce the concept of programmability, show where you can find some of the open source apps and custom visualizations, and finally do a quick demo of how you can build your own. In a nutshell, programmability is about giving engineers full access to the New Relic database engine and the building blocks they need to consume data in ways that solve their unique business problems. It also means giving our engineer users and customers the same set of tools our own engineers use to build our platform's curated experiences. So what does this look like? At its foundation is the telemetry data platform that is able to ingest not just the data from the New Relic agents, but also from integrations that support open standards such as OpenTelemetry. On top of this data platform is a series of scalable services such as GraphQL APIs, as well as the developer tools such as the Software Development Kit, or SDK for short, and the Command Line Interface, or CLI for short, that allow you to access and interact with the data. Finally, a user interface is built on open source React JavaScript with the flexibility to support the development of custom applications and visualizations. So if you're like me, I find it really helpful to look at what others have already created before I try to write a piece of code. So it's a good idea to explore what is already available in the open source community, as it may help inspire you to build your own New Relic custom application and visualization. The first place to explore is the New Relic Instant Observability, or IO, which you can find via the apps icon in the New Relic toolbar. It contains a catalog of public apps and visualizations that are maintained by New Relic and can be managed via the UI. The catalog also allows you to manage your own custom apps. You can find a number of other open source apps and visualizations in the New Relic open source website. The great thing about open source is that these apps are extensible, meaning you can customize them to fit your needs. And you can easily install them via the CLI. Here are a couple of examples that I wanted to showcase. The first one is a cloud optimized application, which analyzes your cloud environment, figures out where you're wasting money on excess cloud capacity. The application compares the size of your instances to their utilization, finds resources that are sized larger than needed, and estimates how much you could save by optimizing the resource size. The Browser Analyzer app displays an analysis of performance and forecasts how improving the performance of your website can impact your key performance indicators such as bounce rate or traffic. It also figures out which individual site pages have the worst impact on performance, so you know where to start making fixes and improvements. A popular visualization is the status widget pack, which contains 3 types of visualizations. And one of those 3 is this status timeline widget that allows you to display how your services are performing over time using traffic lights as visual indicators. So now it's time to build our own app. I will show you how to build a nerd pack, which is the deployable package of an application containing all the source code and resources required to run it. It is basically a collection of React components, including launchers, nerdlets, and visualizations, all structured into a JavaScript app bundle. A launcher is a declarative file. It allows you to configure your application's name and description, as well as which nerdlet within the nerd pack to run when it is clicked. An application is made up of 1 or more nerdlets, which are renderable views or windows, so they can link to each other or be launched by launchers. And finally, a visualization is a custom view or widget that can be added to a dashboard. Similar to nerdlets, it can display data, whether it's from New Relic or an external data source, and you can find them via the custom visualizations app. All right, so in an alternate universe, I have opened a number of cat cafes around the country where I serve coffee and cute cats are lunging around to entertain my customers, who may then fall in love with them and decide to adopt them. So in order to achieve my goal of helping these cats find their forever home, I need to keep track of how many have been adopted and how many are still up for adoption. So I went ahead and sent this data to New Relic, but how do I visualize all my data since I have so many cat cafes around the country? Luckily, I can build an awesome nerd pack. So let's go ahead and create it. So I am in the New Relic homepage. I hope you can still see it. So in the New Relic homepage, you can go to the apps and click on the build your own app. You can follow these instructions in the quick start. So if you haven't already done so, you can create an API key in your New Relic account or select an existing API key. This is where you can download and install the NR1 CLI and make sure that it is up and running. And then the last step to before you build your nerd pack is to save your credentials. So let me copy this and we'll go ahead and create a package and run it. And I am going to name my nerdlet as Cat Cafe Tracker and my launcher as Cat Cafe Launcher. So it will install the dependencies and create all the different components needed for my app. And then I can go to that nerd pack and let me open this in my Visual Studio Code. All right. And let me open the terminal here. And then I can run my server through the NR1 CLI with this command NR1 nerdpack serve. All right. So you will notice that now you can run one.newrelic.com with nerdpacks equals local. This means that any local development you make can be tested in the New Relic platform. You're also given a shortcut to the launcher, which will open your nerdlet directly. So let's go ahead and copy that. And let's go back to the browser here and let's close this prompt. And now we have our Hello World version for our Cat Cafe tracker, but it's not really very exciting, right? So let's go back to our code. And for the sake of time, I will be copying and pasting my code, including index.js. So this code will contain the logic to retrieve the data from the database and display it in two views, a table view and a map view. So let me go ahead and do that. And then I also need to update my styles.scss. So this will contain styling elements for my custom UI. All right. Third one, I need to update my package.json dependencies because we will be using the leaflet package to create a map. All right, and then finally, I need the webpack config, which we will need to support the use of map tiling information data from leaflet. And this will be copied at the root folder of our package. All right, and let me save all of that. And I have to restart my server. Let me clear that. And I have to do an npm install first, since I had to update my package.json. And now I'm going to restart my server and relaunch my app. All right, so let's copy that new link and go back to our browser. Hopefully this will work. There we go. All right, so now I can view all my cat cafes around the country. I created my visualization such that the size of the circles indicates how many cats are available for adoption in that area. So the bigger the circle, the more cats are available. The green color means more cats have been adopted, while those that are yellow or dark orange means we have some work to do to get more cats adopted. And finally, I have also displayed my data in a table view to the side of my map. All right, I hope you have enjoyed this quick demo on how programmability through the use of React.js can help you create visualizations that focus on solving business problems. Please feel free to connect with me through my email or LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne, for that talk and demo, and we'll be sure to connect with you on LinkedIn. So our leadership panel will talk about New Relic culture, inclusion, career development, and successful interview prep. Our moderator today is Ariane Evans. She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion manager at New Relic, working with the talent acquisition, hiring managers, employees, and external organizations to recruit, engage, develop underrepresented communities, and she co-leads the Relics of Color ERG. Welcome, Ariane.
Thanks, Angie. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariane Evans, and as Angie mentioned, I'm a DE&I manager at New Relic. I love that I get to spend a little time with you and facilitate a conversation with some of our incredible leaders at New Relic, all of them women. It's so inspiring to have leaders that are not only passionate about their work, but the communities that they work within. Before I dive into the questions to know more about New Relic and the areas of expertise of each of these leaders, let's go through a quick lightning round of introductions. Please give me your name, title, and a sweet little fun fact about you. And let's start with Kim.
Hi everyone. Happy Pride Month. My name's Kim Camacho and my pronouns are she and her. I've been the director of DE&I at New Relic for about a year and have also about 20 years of DE&I and HR experience. A fun fact about me is, I met Barack Obama right after he announced his candidacy for presidency a long time ago. So that is my fun fact.
Very cool, and also now very jealous. Let's go ahead and hear from Ariane.
Very jealous of that fun fact. Hi, I'm Ariane Dietrich. I lead the social impact and environmental, social, and governance organizations at New Relic. My pronouns are she and her. And I've been at New Relic for about 4.5 years. And I'm based in Portland. And my fun fact is that I have 2 small children, a 1.5-year-old little girl and a 5.5-year-old little boy. And they keep me incredibly busy. And very tired all the time. So I don't think I've slept well in 5 years. Fun fact.
Well, you look great even on little sleep, Ariane. So thanks for joining. Let's hear from Tracy next.
Hi, my name is Tracy Ravenscraft. I've been here at New Relic for about 5.5 years. I run a technical account manager team in Central. And my fun fact is I have 2 dogs, 1 Pomeranian, 1 Pomsky, and they have names like friend characters. So their names are Phoebe and Ross. Thank you.
I love a good friends joke. Let's hear from Nora next.
Hi, everybody. I lead Customer Adoption Organization, America's Customer Adoption Organization here at New Relic. Been here for 5 years, if you're wondering what customer adoption is. So basically all engineers that work closely with our customers, helping them learn how to use our platform to solve their technical and business problem, basically. So fun fact, throughout my life, I have had 5 different passports. So no, I'm not a female version of James Bond, but you know, that's what my husband likes to think.
I might also think of like a reference to Carmen Sandiego, like where in the world is Nora de Veiga? Like where is she going next? Next, let's have Stephanie.
Hi, thanks, Ariane. I'm Stephanie Smith. I'm based in Massachusetts. I've been with New Relic for 6 years, currently senior manager of talent acquisition. My team supports go-to-market customer adoption. And let's see, fun fact about me is I have 2 teenage daughters, one of which just graduated high school last weekend, which is very hard to believe. And a younger one who's going to be, she's a sophomore, she'll be a junior. And Erin, the exhaustion doesn't stop. It only gets different. And it's like bigger problems with bigger kids, but it's all worth it. Fun ride for sure. Excited to be here.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thank you all. So we all just listened to quite a few talks learning about why observability is important, what is monitoring, how do we implement these different products and technology. And also this happens inside of a company where the people work together. There's a culture that allows us to do that work at our best and highest potential. I'd love to hear from each of you on how you are not only living those in practices, but working that out in your teams and your strategies at New Relic. So I will start with a bit of our culture and understanding how is New Relic creating a culture where people from all backgrounds feel included?
All right, so I could take a stab at that, Ariane. I think first and foremost, I think, you know, we are very clear about our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We communicate our vision, mission, and objectives annually as we build out our short-term annual plans and our long-term strategy. You know, all new employees and interns hear about our strategy as well as our organization when they onboard. And we measure regularly how employees are feeling, the extent to which they feel belonging and respect to the company. It's so important to do that. I think also for our employees, one of the big things that's really important is having communities of people that you can bond with that are recognizable to you and sort of have the same interests and backgrounds that you have. We have employee resource groups at New Relic. They're fully funded and have leadership organizations as well as executive sponsors. And it's through these organizations that we hope that people are building relationships, bonding, getting to know each other outside of their regular roles. And we also have, in addition to our ERGs, we have other Slack channels based on whatever people want to connect with, whether it's dogs, bunnies. There was one that was just started on crime channels, which I'm in love with, so you can bond. And the last thing I'll say as it relates to, really creating a culture where people feel connected is the importance of managers. I think as our audience will know, your manager makes a big difference, right? Here at New Relic, it's really important that we support, train, help our managers really understand cultural competency, how to build a diverse and equitable workplace. Everyone I think on this call knows, because they've been through some of our trainings and are actively involved in these efforts. And it's just really important that we're working with our managers so that they understand their role in helping create a nurturing environment for our employees. So that's a little bit about from my perspective.
That is all really cool. And I know that there are also more things that New Relic is engaging. Aaron, maybe you can tell us, what is New Relic focused on for engaging our employees and social impact?
Yeah, thanks, Ariane. So newrelic.org is the name of our social impact work, and we started it in early 2019 and really committed at that point to this mission of how do we as a company continue to push for more equitable access to technology? We really believe that, accessing not just physical technology, like having the best computer, having the best SaaS tools, but having the access to understanding what technology careers actually look like, what kinds of roles there are within technology, that is such a critical piece to creating this more equitable future for the industry, and to thinking about how do we help people all along their learning journey, whether they're, somebody who's had a couple careers already and are starting a third career in technology, or a student who's early in life thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. How do we give all of those people access to our incredible employees? So that they can hear the stories about how we all got where we are and be able to start seeing themselves on this whole rainbow of pathways, right? It is not just one clear point A to point B gets you a tech career. There are so many different ways to get where you're going and so many different destinations along the way. And so we're just really passionate about infusing that into everything we do in social impact, and thinking about how we take the 2,000 plus employees around the world with us on that journey. So some of the ways that we do that, we have a bunch of benefits that all of our employees get access to. They get to have 16 hours of paid time off to volunteer a year. Plus, we now have a set global day of service every winter. So that's 3 full days of volunteering, and you can slice and dice that kind of however you want throughout the year. We incentivize our employees using that volunteering by actually giving them dollars that they can push towards their favorite charities every time they log their hours of volunteering. We have a $200 a year matching program, so employees can get $200, up to $200 a year matched to any number of global charities. I think there's 20,000 charities that they can pick from. And then we do a bunch of special campaigns. And so some of the things that I really love that we've been building, and you've actually been a big part of building these with us, Ariane, are some of our partnerships with our employee resource groups, where we're really going to our employee resource groups and helping them give us the sort of understanding of where they want to impact in their communities, what organizations they want to work with, and then working together to make sure that that information is accessible to our employees to sort of incentivize and point them towards making really smart decisions with their wealth of how they can build this more equitable future. So a great example of that is, since it's June and it's Pride Month, we are working with our Rainbow Relics ERG and just launched a $25,000 additional matching campaign. So in addition to those $200 employees have, they now can also put additional dollars towards this matching campaign that goes to 5 different organizations that our Rainbow Relics helped us identify and pick in their communities, organizations that they really care about that are helping the LGBTQ community with all of the different things going on both in the US and abroad. And so helping, being able to kind of be a part of understanding what that ERG community wants employees to support, and then helping employees understand how they can use their dollars to support their fellow relics and the things they care about is something that just makes me so excited. And I just love seeing the way our employees sort of are supporting each other through those special campaigns. I think I'm almost out of time, but I'll tell one other very quick story, which is since we have so many technical and inspiring folks on this call, I always like to take the opportunity to just pause and remind folks how valuable your skills are. Technology skills are so incredible, and there's a myriad of ways you could apply those to social good. So something we love to do is partnering our employees up with our nonprofit customers who get to use expanded access to New Relic for free, but we know that they need help with enablement. And so we partner them up with employees, and the employees take on pro bono volunteering projects where they're using their technical skills to really support observability in nonprofits. And so you don't have to be a New Relic employee to do something like that. You can really step back and say, what causes are super important to me? What organizations do I love? Reach out to them and say, I want to talk to whoever's running your technology and see how I can be of support. I have XYZ skill set that I'm really proud of. Is there a project I could help you on pro bono and volunteer and support your organization building your digital environment? Because that is what every organization needs in order to kind of power their mission. And every person with technology skills has just so much that they can give back. And so we love to do that at New Relic, but I also just love to encourage anyone, anytime I can, to think about how you can use your skills out there in your community to power the charities and the causes that you care about.
Thanks, Erin. It sounds like New Relic is really building out a culture for people to live a life fully as they'd like, both internally and their communities, the things that they care about, but also themselves wholly. I'd love to hear from you, Tracy, in describing to us which areas of your life would you like to spend more quality time when we think about work-life balance?
That's a great question. Thank you. When I think about where I like to spend my time outside of work, definitely with family and friends. Like everybody wants that more family friend time. But not only just like spending more time with them, like being present, right? Not checking my phone for Slack messages, going on vacations and being able to completely disconnect. That's what New Relic has brought to my life. So I remember prior to being here, I've been at New Relic for 5.5 years. So I did site reliability in the past, network administration, network engineering, and I never realized how I wasn't there. Like I'm always looking for the next page. When I have time off, I'm bringing my laptop, I'm bringing my phone. And I feel like New Relic with our recharge week, which is a week this summer that we all get off at the same time, FTO, so it's flex time off. There's like really no limit to my vacation. And just some of the applications we have like Ginger that helps with like mental health. I really feel connected when I'm using my own personal time and being with my family. So yeah, that's kind of how I like to recharge, if you will.
Yeah, so important, especially when you're thinking about when you are moving on to the next project or you are trying to get to the deadline of a particular thing. You can't do that if you're empty and you don't have the energy within you. And so I guess kind of moving on, switching gears a little bit, want to talk with you, Nora, about navigating careers and career challenges. Career journeys can vary person to person. As Tracy just described, she's been across the board of different kinds of engineers and now a customer adoption leader. But how might you recommend navigating a career journey and even a career journey into leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent question, really. And what we in general try to encourage folks in my organization is to own their career, right? And be really proactive about it. And so a lot of people early in their careers think that they should somehow this just wait for their manager to kind of have these types of conversations. And I would say quite the opposite. Be proactive about it, ask questions, share what do you want for yourself? Where do you want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Ask your manager, what do I need to do to get there? Right? Because if you're informed and you know what this person expects from you, what 3-5 things they want to see from you in order for you to actually make it there, guess what? You have a lot higher chance of getting there than if you're just kind of sitting and waiting for them to tell you, because they may or may not tell you actually, right? They may or may not understand that you want to get from this role to some other role, right? And that is what we see a lot with our teams. At New Relic, we are very much committed to our employees' career progression. And these are proactive conversations that are happening continuously. We encourage our employees to put together their career plans, to share those with their managers. And then, some of them just want to go, hey, how do I go from, this role that I'm in today, maybe to a senior role or a principal role. Others want to move maybe from one org to a different org. So they want help with that path. Third group will say, well, I want to get to leadership, right? But I think how you approach it really doesn't matter. At New Relic specifically, we will, if you are interested in leadership, we have, about 14 different management classes that we recommend to folks that are sort of setting you on that leadership path at New Relic. But, whether you're at New Relic or somewhere else, show your manager, show your leadership that what you really are interested in, where your heart is at, and be proactive about it. That's probably like the best advice I can give.
Yeah, I love that. And I will say that I think my career journey at New Relic is a testament to that, starting in talent acquisition and getting to be a partner to Stephanie, but then moving into social impact and getting to learn from Ariane. And now today, being a part of the DE&I team and getting to work very closely with Kim. And that has all been championed by New Relic and the leaders within. I just said, I'm interested in this thing. And I'm not really sure where to go from here. But it did start with an interview. It started with a conversation with my manager. And so I'd love to kick it over to you, Stephanie, and think about, for a lot of people, getting started in your career, or looking for new opportunities, it starts with that interview process. And you've interviewed hundreds of people in your career. And now as a recruiting leader, what is the best advice you have for anyone that is preparing to interview or in the process of interviewing currently?
That's a good question. I do want to just talk about just quickly, Ariane, your career progression. There's so many people at New Relic that have had career progression, me included. I started off as a recruiter and promoted along the way to senior manager. So there's so much opportunity. But yes, there is an interview that's involved, and interviewing with a company is really, it's your first impression, but it's also our first impression to you as well. So I always tell people that, it's your interview as much as it is ours. Make sure you qualify, know what the company does, really know what the company does, do some research, do your homework. There's a wealth of information about companies on the internet. It's incredible. Link in with people on LinkedIn, understand the roles and responsibilities of what people are. And then when you are talking to someone, likely it's going to be a recruiter first. It's a conversation. Like I said, it's really, you're qualifying us, we're qualifying you. And, part of our core values is being authentic. And I think that you've probably seen a lot of authenticity throughout this entire panel and previous to the speakers. Be authentic during the interview, be yourself, find some common ground and look at it as just a conversation. Working, we spend more time than anywhere else but work. And New Relic encourages everyone to be their best authentic self. And when you're in the interview, just really be yourself and ask good questions and talk about career pathing and all the things that are important to you. And realize, if this is the right company, position, and so forth. And also even ask for, guidance along the way. Your recruiter is going to be the first step, and the recruiters are going to send you on for the next interview. Connect with your recruiter as often as possible. even connect with the people that you're interviewing with. We have multiple steps of roles when we interview here at New Relic, and people are always going to be available to help guide you through the process. And ultimately, like I said, it's your interview as much as it's ours.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And since we've also wrapped up this time with all of our leaders, I want to thank Girl Geek, thank New Relic for also putting this together, and for everybody for listening in. I hope that you've gotten to pull out some nuggets of advice that are beneficial to you. If you are interested in learning more about New Relic or careers or opportunities, there are some things that Kim dropped into about our ERGs and our benefits. Please take a look at newrelic.com/culture. It will take you to our careers page and the opportunities that are currently live across the world. There are many.
Thank you, Ariane, for moderating the panel, and to all the panelists for joining us. So now is time for our networking session. If you can click on the link at the bottom of the chat to our Zoom meeting, we can go into a Zoom meeting and have some breakout rooms where we can meet each other in person and chat a little with our remaining 15 minutes that we have today. So if you can click on that link that AW or Amy has added, I'll see you over at Zoom meeting and talk to you there. Thanks for coming.